Welcome to Giant Ability TV.
Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night shows knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. The incident of the presidential election of February 25th, 2023 represent the highest level of electoral fraud of unprecedented magnitude since the return of democracy to the country in 1999, and has left Nigerians with the problems that they are grappling with today in the forms of an unprecedented level of poverty, insecurity, hunger, and corruption, just to mention a few. Nigerians, because of their nature, are resilient and easily forgive and forget. Nevertheless, things like insecurity, hunger, and poverty that stare us in the face are undeniable. Looking at politics as a game, recall how the INEC chairman Mahmood Yakubu, who was supposed to be the head of an unbiased umpire that can be likened to a referee in a game of soccer, awarded an undeserving goal to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who himself, as a sprinter in athletics, ran with the trophy of fraud and handed it over to the Chief Justice of the Federation, Olukayode Ariwola, who occupied a seat that resembles that of God Almighty, where the words of his mouth carries power that cannot be contended. Instead of questioning the authenticity and legitimacy of the trophy handed over to him, chose to be complicit and handed over the trophy to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, who by virtue of the authority bestowed on him through the same fraudulent source from where the trophy originated, kept it for a while and then handed it over to player Tinubu for keep. It is just a few days above a year since the illegality began and was allowed to pervade the strata of our society, and as cancer has eaten deep into the fabric of Nigeria as a country and Nigerians as a people. However, Nigerians seem to have learned nothing and forgotten everything. There is nothing that can be built on nothing, and the foundation of every building determines how strong or weak the building turns out to be, whether it will be such that will be swept away by flood or stand the test of time. Nigerians have nothing to celebrate but have much to regret. If to whom lies are being told do not know it, definitely the liar does know it. All the 48 members of Tinubu's cabinet known as ministers are just like the dancing masquerades, who have someone beating the drums for them in the corner. There is no gainsaying the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu knew the state of Nigeria so well before hijacking power with just 37% of the votes of Nigerians. For Nigerians to expect any change in their living conditions, the faulty foundation will have to be revisited, for without destruction, there can be no reconstruction. What Nigerians expected was not different from what they got. Ab initio, they did not vote for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to be their president. However, it only turned out that the person they did not vote for is the one now in the saddle. They were therefore not wrong in the choice they made in the presidential elections of February 25th, 2023. They were only wrong in not resisting the imposition of the president that was imposed on them. So in conclusion, what the 1 year of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu reminds Nigerians of is nothing other than their stolen mandate.
The present administration has tried to separate itself from the Buhari era. But unfortunately, it is impossible to do so because it's the same family, the same party. And indeed, Tinubu is famous for supporting or indeed bringing Buhari to office. So he can't really separate the two administrations. I think what we are facing is a situation where you overpromise and completely underdeliver. We were in ground zero with the Buhari administration, and therefore the promise was Tinubu a performer. He did magic in Lagos. He was coming to repeat the same thing in Abuja, and of course his inaugural speech was powerful. You recall that it was in that speech that he talked about so many of the major policy ideas that he proposed, like subsidy. When he was saying that subsidy was gone, it was quite nice. It sounded good. But what has happened is that their campaign messages have not been turned into actionable program. That is really the issue. So they have overpromised, but have not been able to put together a team of people to help them synthesize the message into actionable plan. And that's really part of the challenge, that you promise, the expectation is high, and that is why it's been assessed in a very harsh way.
Government has made promises to deliver, and government is not delivering. But what people are really thinking about is the precariousness of their lives. One, being on the road, traveling, even sitting in your house, people coming with arms, kidnap you, take you away for ransom. And the extended family have to sell all their properties to raise money to try to rescue you. And just to make you doubt whether there's any point in rescue, sometimes the ransom is paid and they kill you anyway. The other issue is this spread of violence and criminality which remain unchecked all over the country. The cost of living has created a crisis in which people fall sick. Curing malaria today is a major endeavor because of the escalation of the costs of drugs. People wonder, why do Nigerians pray so much today? It's because they fall sick, they can't pay for drugs. So the only alternative for them is to pray. And prayer, of course, is good, but sometimes these malaria parasites refuse to listen to your powerful prayers. So it's this precariousness of life that you are unsafe in this country. And for a great number of Nigerians, the most basic sense of insecurity is they can't get their 3 square meals a day.
Furthermore, the interview that Datti Baba Ahmed, the running mate of Mr. Gregory Obi in the 2023 presidential election, granted Arise TV prime time on Friday 24th, 2024, was quite revealing, especially of the intrigues that currently go on within the presidency and the alleged plan of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu against the Vice President Kashim Shettima and Nigeria as a country. Datti Baba Ahmed, in his words, quote, "Only weeks back, the number 2 refused to board a certain machine and travel out of the country. What does that begin to tell you? It is only after somebody falls that he can rise, and he who lives by the death of others shall die by the survival of others." End of quote.
Come 2026, and you begin to see what is going on in other parties, particularly APC. The ongoing presidency now, with the distrust, and then, of course, the most fundamental, their failures. But sadly, Nigerian politics is not about governance. It is about escorting people to achieve their individual political desires. Unfortunately, sadly, it is. Only weeks back, a number 2 refused to board a certain machine and travel out of the country. What does that begin to tell you? When the number 1 was out, I would not dwell so much into this, but when the time comes and the distrust shows, they know each other more than we probably know them. So the problems of Labour Party is child play comparing to what is going on there. I mean, I don't want to call names, but Femi Rojamila is much too smart for that number 2. The lady senator is too loyal, too faithful to have fallen into the schemes of that number 2. Because they know him. It is only after somebody falls that he can rise. And he who lives by the death of others shall die by the survival of others. So if I were you, leave out the problems of Labour Party. These people are in government. They can do and undo in the same way they can do and undo themselves. He couldn't even travel out of the country. Nobody's asking why. Go and ask why. Initially, the plan was to go with a chief of staff, and then he passed away. So they know each other. They are busy causing problems in Labour Party. I would say leave Labour Party alone.
Right. Well,
leave Labour Party alone. Go back and put your heads together. Sort the problems of Nigeria and do it quickly.
This insinuation must be investigated with every sense of seriousness it deserves. However, to the perceptive minds and a few Nigerians who are politically conscious, the purported plans may not be far from being true, but the question that needs to be asked are whether they are such that can reposition Nigeria as a country, and if the methods employed in carrying them out will paint a picture that is apt and supportive of the saying that the end justifies the means. This further opens us up to the purported plan of a merger among the political parties who are in the opposition right now. The plan being hashed right now is about having the prominent parties in the opposition, such as the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Labour Party (LP), New Nigeria's People Party (NNPP), Social Democratic Party (SDP), and others come under the same umbrella and have Mr. Gregory Peter Obi as the consensus candidate. Going by the earlier allegation made by Datti Baba Ahmed on how President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will have no choice after his second term in office than to dismember Nigeria as a country by breaking it into 6 geopolitical zones. The area to ponder on now becomes the secret behind the motivation that surrounds the readiness of the Northerners to agreeing with the presidential candidature of an Igbo man in the person of Mr. Peter Gregory Obi. One, after connecting the dots, may want to assume that what the North is out for is to try to prevent what, in other words, can be referred to as the restructuring of Nigeria, as well as preserve the status quo. If that be the case, the pertinent question now becomes, are the Northerners giving the slot of the presidency to the Igbos in good faith, or they are just trying to use Peter Obi to hijack power to preserve the status quo of having Nigeria remain as it has always been, where true federalism has become too difficult to achieve, and the causation of the problems that have bedeviled the country in insecurity, poverty, terrorism, banditry, and the like? Suffice it to say that the 2027 elections in Nigeria will be crucial in determining what becomes of the country going forward. With these plans in place and going on the ground, one can read and understand a clear meaning to one of the reasons behind the reverser to the old national anthem created in 1959 by a British expatriate. There is no gainsaying the fact that Nigeria is going down the drain and at the brink of disintegration. The problems of Nigeria have always been systemic and fundamental, and if any leader will be sincere, fair, and just to all Nigerians, irrespective of any sentiment or biases, it will take a far-reaching and bold decision to have Nigeria salvaged. There is no doubt whatsoever that the agitations going on among the major tribes in Nigeria would one day fructify, and truly speaking, if the restructuring of the country becomes difficult to achieve, its breakup therefore becomes inevitable. Tinubu is taking the country Nigeria somewhere, but not all Nigerians can be privy to where the country is headed. However, whether it is for the good of all or just a few is a mystery to be unraveled. The choice of going back to the old national anthem is just the tip of the iceberg. There is more to come, and wisdom is key as we journey towards the promised land. Many will surely fall by the wayside, and tough decisions are required to reposition the country. Someone has to take the bull by the horns as well as bell the cat. The 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, are all in the same boat, and no one is different from the other. God forbid if the boat should capsize, and because they all have their eggs in one basket and are all headed in one direction, all is doomed.
How much of this democracy, unbroken democracy that we are celebrating today, how has it translated to, unbroken food security? How has it transferred or transformed into unbroken security in the nation? How has it transformed into unbroken access to education, access to healthcare? And we're talking about celebration of democracy. The democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. And it should actually change the lives of our people. We are representing our people. Our people are hungry back home. For me, to be honest with you, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing to celebrate.
Oh, you are saying we should not celebrate
So we should be looking at celebrating food security. We should be looking at celebrating access to health care. So we should be looking at celebrating. There are a lot of things to celebrate. We know that we have had unbroken. Excuse me, please. I need to be protected.
Nigeria, we hail thee.
Thank you for watching.